It was said that my father's armor had been forged of a metal so pure that it could not be pierced by any sword. It was also said that his sword had been blessed by the heavens, and that its blade shone with a light that could guide him through even the darkest night. And as for his horse, it was said that it had been born of the wind, and that it could run as fast as the clouds. It was also said that my father's armor had been cursed by the whispers of his slain foes. They said their rage, their pain, their dying breaths clung to the metal, forever seeking vengeance on the man who ended them. None dared approach him, not out of fear of his strength, but of the darkness that clung to him like a second skin. Cities were conquered one after the other until none were left to conquer, and my father stood alone, a king without a kingdom, a warrior without a war. When I was but a boy, my father showed me his sword and armor. They were magnificent. The armor gleamed even in the dim light of the castle, reflecting the dying embers of the hearth. The sword, sheathed in worn leather, pulsed with a faint, inner light that both fascinated and frightened me. He told me they would be mine when I grew up. "I will conquer with them," I said, my voice filled with the longing that only a child raised on tales of glory could possess. I imagined myself astride his legendary steed, the wind whipping through my hair, the cursed armor gleaming in the sun as I charged into battle. My father smiled, a rare and precious thing. He nodded his head. "You will," he said, "but first you must prove yourself worthy." "Worthy?" I asked, confused. What more could I do than be his son? "Yes," my father replied, his voice losing its warmth, becoming heavy with the burden of his possessions. "Very few are worthy of wielding this sword. It demands more than strength. It demands a pure heart." That night, my father shared stories he'd never told before, tales stripped bare of the heroic gloss the bards applied. He spoke not of glorious victories, but of the villages burned, the families orphaned, the lives extinguished in the name of ambition. He described the terror in the eyes of the enemy, the silent screams of those crushed beneath the weight of his ambition. Each victory, he confessed, had left a stain on his soul, a stain that the cursed armor amplified, binding him to the suffering he had caused. The conqueror was now the conquered, a prisoner of his own legend. The next day he led me to the stables to see Zephyr, the famed horse born of the wind. My expectations were dashed. It was not the magnificent, ethereal beast I had envisioned, but a tired old mare, her coat dull and matted, her eyes weary and ancient. Her spirit seemed to have been sucked dry, leaving behind a shell. "Zephyr's speed came at a price," my father said, his voice low and regretful. "Every stride, every victory, drained her life force. She gave everything so I could conquer, and now she is little more than a shadow of her former glory." He ran a hand down her bony flank, his touch gentle, almost apologetic. It was then that I understood Zephyr was not a tool of conquest, but a victim of it. As I ventured forth into the world with the map in hand, the weight of my father's words heavy in my heart, the journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The path was long and treacherous, leading through dense forests and across vast deserts, over towering mountains and through treacherous swamps. I faced countless trials and tribulations, encountering mythical creatures and cunning adversaries, each one testing the mettle of my soul. Yet, with every step I took, the whispers grew louder, urging me onward, taunting me with the promise of power and the echoes of their own unresolved pain. Despite the darkness that clung to me, I remained steadfast in my pursuit of redemption, driven by the hope that I could free my father from the curse of his own legend. Through my travels, I began to understand the true meaning of a warrior's strength, not in the battles won, but in the lives saved and the justice upheld. And as I grew, so too did the whispers grow quieter, the burden of the sword and armor lighter, as if they recognized the change in me. After years of searching, I finally arrived at the long-forgotten forge, its fires long extinguished, the blacksmith's anvil cold to the touch. Yet, within the ashes, I found a spark of hope, a hint of the divine spark that had once imbued these cursed relics with their power. I knew then that the quest was not just to lift the curse, but to find a way to restore peace to the souls within the steel and the wind's breath to the weary horse. This was the true test of my worthiness. The forge lay hidden in the heart of a desolate valley, shrouded by ancient trees that whispered of forgotten lore. Upon arriving, I found the place untouched by time, as if the very air held its breath, waiting for the moment of redemption to arrive. The silence was deafening, only broken by the distant echo of a hammer striking an anvil, a rhythm that seemed to resonate from the very earth beneath me. Guided by this ghostly sound, I approached the entrance, the map trembling in my grasp. As I stepped through the archway, the whispers of the armor grew almost deafening, but I pressed on, driven by an unyielding determination to fulfill my father's wish. Within the forge, I discovered an ancient scroll, partially charred but still legible, detailing the ritual to break the curse. It spoke of purifying the steel in the tears of 1,000 wronged souls, and restoring the horse's vitality with the breath of the first breeze of spring. The path ahead was not one of glorious battles, but of healing and atonement. With newfound resolve, I set out to seek the lost spirits of those my father had harmed, to offer them solace and to collect their tears of forgiveness. As I ventured forth, the sword at my side grew cooler, the armor lighter, and the weary horse began to show signs of life, as if sensing the coming of a new chapter in our shared destiny. The whispers grew fainter with every act of kindness, every tear shed and sorrow shared. The map grew worn, its edges frayed from countless folds, as I traversed the lands, searching for the souls bound to the steel. Their stories were etched into my heart, a testament to the cost of ambition and the enduring hope of redemption. Each step brought me closer to understanding the true measure of a hero, not in the battles won, but in the lives changed. As the last whispers faded and the sword cooled to match the warmth of my hand, I knew that the final trial approached. The first breeze of spring caressed my face, a gentle herald of the task that remained to breathe life back into the horse born of the wind. With the purified armor and the lightened heart of the sword, we three, the warrior, the steed, and the blade, ventured forth, ready to face the dawning of a new era, unshackled from the chains of our cursed legacy. In the early light of spring, the air crisp with the promise of rebirth, I led the revitalized horse back to the castle. The journey had transformed us all. The armor no longer whispered its dark secrets. The sword felt like an extension of my own righteous spirit. As we approached, my father, now an old man, watched from the battlements, his eyes filled with hope and apprehension. With trembling hands, I offered him the map, now a tapestry of healed hearts and forgiven souls. The wind picked up, carrying with it the whispers of 1,000 voices, no longer curses, but blessings. He took the map, his gaze never leaving mine. "You have proven yourself worthy, my son," he said, his voice strong once more. "Not in conquest, but in the forging of a new legacy." Together we entered the great hall, where the once mighty armor and sword had been placed upon an altar of cold stone. As I laid the map atop them, the flames of the hearth leapt high, engulfing the relics in a fiery embrace. The armor melted away, releasing the spirits of the slain, and the sword's light grew so bright it washed the darkness from the room. The horse, feeling the warmth of the purified steel, took a deep breath and transformed before our eyes into a creature of light and wind. As the flames subsided, my father and I stood before the shimmering light of the now free souls and the ethereal steed. We knew that the curse had been lifted, and with it, the burden of our past. We had found redemption not in the glories of war, but in the quiet moments of healing and peace. The legend of the unbreakable armor, the heaven-blessed sword, and the horse born of the wind would live on. But now it was a tale of compassion, sacrifice, and justice. Our hearts were no longer bound by the chains of conquest, but by the unbreakable bonds of love and understanding. The castle walls echoed not with the cries of battle, but with the whispers of 1,000 souls, finally at peace. their stories forever intertwined with ours in the annals of a kinder, wiser history. With the curse shattered and the souls released, the castle stood in silent reverence. The Soulfire, once a symbol of destruction and power, now dissipated into the air, leaving nothing but the fading embers of a past that no longer defined us. The horse, now a being of pure light, stretched its legs and leaped into the sky, the wind whispering through its mane as it disappeared into the horizon, free at last. The armor and sword, no longer instruments of war, were laid to rest in the sacred ground where the forge had stood. The castle, once a bastion of fear and darkness, was now a beacon of peace, its stones resonating with the echoes of a redemptive journey. My father and I stood hand in hand, our hearts filled with a warmth that no armor could contain, our spirits soaring as we watched the steed of legend descend. The whispers had ceased, and in their place was the gentle sigh of the wind, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning, a future unshackled from the chains of our past. The end of the curse was the dawn of our freedom.